Hey everyone, my name is David from 52 Churches in 52 Weeks. Last night I got back from Cincinnati, Ohio after attending Crossroads Church. This church was in the headlines last week within Christian circles for a very bizarre reason. So as part of its Super Bowl sermon skit, it completely shanked sideways when they tried to kick the Bible that was dressed as a football into the crowd. And many Christian commentators completely criticized this and blew it up online. So let me explain what exactly happened. So the previous weekend was Super Bowl Sunday, and for a sport called football, boy did it feature a lot of feet. So for one, both teams' kickers ended up booting the longest made field goals in Super Bowl history. Then during the game was the return of the He Gets Us campaign that featured this AI-looking slideshow of various people washing the feet of someone from a polar opposite background. And just due to the images selected, it created it knocked off the socks of a lot of Christians who didn't think that was a good portrayal of Jesus Christ and his message. But then after that died down, then you start to have this new video that surfaced online that featured Crossroads Church, this interdenominational megachurch in Ohio. So they were trying to bring in new people into its church by kicking off Super Bowl Sunday by having a Super Bowl themed type of service. So this had it all. All their site's pastors attended this. Some were wearing 49ers jerseys, some were wearing Chiefs jerseys. And then they had like a coin flip. And the senior pastor won the coin flip. He elected to receive the Bible. So they line up, and one pastor holds down this book that was supposed to be the Bible. I don't know if it actually was. And it was in this book cover of a football. So a female pastor goes backwards and sets up to kick it. And when she kicks it, the senior pastor on the other side of it, he's not able to catch it, and it ends up in the crowd. And not only that, but then this was quite the spectacle to see, because they had other pastors who were play-by-play announcers. They even had this AstroTurf as part of its stage. And then a referee came in like a wrecking ball, Miley Cyrus style, for this halftime show. When video of this went viral, the Christian commentators threw the biblical penalty flags on this from left and right. And if you think like a quarterback sneak and the pile-on of 300-pound offensive and defensive linemen is something, the pile-on with this scene and with this video was something else to see. And this is not a small church. Crossroads Church in Cincinnati area, they have about 34,000 people that walk into its congregations every single week. From what it looks like on YouTube, they're very close to having 100,000 subscribers. So this is not small. This is a very big church. So for me, who goes to all these different churches, I try and give a fair shake. I want to understand how churches do church. And to borrow a football analogy, I wanted to see how they tackle this, if at all. So yesterday, I attended their 10 a.m. service and their 11:45 a.m. service. A lot of different takeaways. Maybe not what you might expect, but I'll show a few images and pictures inside. I'll be back in just a moment. As a quick disclaimer, obviously I am not advocating for anyone to use the Bible for field goal practice. Absolutely not. With Crossroads Church and other megachurches like this that are so focused on numbers and church growth, I've done other videos in the past when I started doing this where I heavily criticized churches. I would call them cupcake churches, because you'd go in, they'd load you up on all this artificial sweetener with the service, leave you with a spiritual sugar rush, but you didn't actually leave with any meat. And I think a big part of that was just from a previous church experience for myself, where I attended regularly a church where it was very much like that. But then when I needed a church, when I needed a spiritual advisor more than any other time of my life, I gave a call to the pastor, gave a call to the secretary, sent an email, and I got nothing back. And it reminded me very much about how much it can hurt to go to a larger church and feel invisible, especially after you've been going for such a long time. When you have something like that happen to you, you're waiting for someone to reach out to you to give you some spiritual inspiration, some spiritual guidance, and you see the show must go on. I have trouble with that. And I think after looking online with Crossroads Church, they've done this last year, and I guess it is a tradition. So there are some news stories out there on YouTube where last year, like members of the church, they would tailgate outside. Younger kids would play flag football. It was all a way to bring in someone who may not necessarily go to church or may have been hurt by church in the past. Almost like this church is designed to not be so encompassing. So there's at least a safety net for someone's spiritual safety to still have something to go to have some type of Christian community when it comes to church. And I think for me, as I wrestle with my thoughts after this visit, there's just such a strong, visceral online reaction with this church for kicking the field goal. They did this last year, and they completed the kick. Nobody said anything about it. They even had the Cincinnati Bengals kicker come up, Evan McPherson, to all give high fives. But because of this year, it was a female pastor. She shanked it. Then someone gets a hold of this, and this blows up within the legalistic Christian online community. And it's very frustrating to see. For myself as an empath, for myself who hates to see bullies online and just completely just destroy a Christian community for a 15-second clip, you know? Like, we don't really know the full extent about what this church does for outreach. So I went to this church to kind of learn more about it. So I'm going to share what I learned from this to get the real story. One thing that has been disheartening to see has been the reaction towards the female pastor that made the kick. And no one is mentioning anything good or anything positive that she has ever done. One term that I've been seeing a lot that has been used against her is people are calling her a pastrix, which is a derogatory term used by Christians who don't recognize female pastors. And when it comes to female pastors, I'm not going to get into that whole debate with this video. But it's been frustrating to see because it reminds me so much of Steve Bartman. Do you remember him? So in October 2003, the Chicago Cubs were playing the Florida Marlins. The Cubs, they were in this 95-year drought since winning their last World Series. There was the curse of the Billy Goat, because the last time the Cubs had been in the World Series, 1945, this fan came into Wrigley Field with his pet Billy Goat. And the Billy Goat, I guess, was a bit obnoxious, and the fans and the security kicked them out. So this fan cursed the Cubs by saying, "You guys are never going to win again." And it came true. They hadn't won a World Series in 95 years up to that point. In this game, the Cubs are 5 outs away from making it to the World Series. They're winning 3-0. And next thing you know, there's a fly ball to left field going foul. And all these fans, they put their hands up, they're ready to catch the ball. And the left fielder for the Cubs, his name was Moises Alou. He comes over, and Steve Bartman is in the wrong place at the wrong time. So his hand touches the ball past everyone else's hands, and Moises Alou, who's trying to make this out, just flips out towards the fan. And next thing you know, the Cubs defense completely collapses. There's wild pitches. The Marlins start getting hit after hit after hit. Next thing you know, the Marlins score 8 runs in that inning, win that game, and then win the next day to advance to the World Series, and the Cubs are SOL. They're simply out of luck. After that game, Steve Bartman was the scapegoat. Everyone in that stadium hurled insults at him. They criticized him. They blamed him for the Cubs' misfortunes. And you had all these burdens, all this frustration for Cubs fans just hurled on this guy. So security had to escort him out of the stadium. And next thing you know, the next day he's doxxed. Everyone knows his name. People are threatening death threats at the guy. And he basically has to go in hiding, all because he was in the wrong seat and his hand touched this foul ball. It wasn't his fault that the Cubs completely collapsed. And when it comes to this pastor, and this is the frustrating thing that I see with many legalistic Christians right now, is they need to fuel criticism. They need to find something wrong in Christian circles to criticize. And the easy target is these bigger churches, because the mega churches, they're not going to react. So they're an easy target. So with this female pastor who's getting all the heat for this, it's hard to see, and my heart goes out for her, because I don't know what good that she's done, because all we hear about is the bad and how wrong she is, because whoever thought this idea up, it didn't go as planned. And then when this blew up, like, she's at the center of it. My first impression walking in was really odd. I've been to a number of mega churches now, but never have I gone to one that featured so much caffeine. Everyone had these orange cups for coffee. And even the kids had about a dozen different options at the soda machine to dispense from. And like, when I walked into the auditorium, again, one of the first things that I noticed was every single seat had a cup holder. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I just have never seen any place that just had this. Like, I didn't have one for the first service that I went to. And I almost felt left out. I almost felt like an outsider, because I was the only person that didn't carry one of these orange cups. I know that sounds silly. So when I did the second service, the last one, I made sure to get one just so I looked more normal, I guess, as part of the church. It's just very strange. So for the first service I got there, it was a 10 a.m. service. I went up to the upper deck, and it's a while to get up there. And you could see they were promoting a number of things. One was the senior pastor's podcast. They were also promoting a few high school activities with a Jersey night. And they were also promoting this. It was this adventure type of thing that they were doing. God awaits you on an adventure this year. So they weren't promoting Bible studies. And I looked on their website. They do Bible studies. One of them that I saw was Rooted. And I've seen this in other churches that I've attended in the past. But they didn't promote that. It was all about promoting going on a field trip to either South Africa or Latin America or Nicaragua or Alabama. So they open up doors about 10 minutes before each service. And when I got in there, it was about 5 minutes before service, and I was one of the only people up there. So what they do is they try and play some type of secular music to get people in. They don't play this in their online stream, I'm sure due to copyright reasons. But the two main worship pastors did this mashup of Circles by Post Malone and I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. So the circles and the lines were to foreshadow the pastor's later sermon that focused on circles and lines. So that mashup was essentially just to say, hey, we're going to get the church service started pretty soon. Get your butts in here. So the church filled up pretty fast. So everything from a production standpoint, this was top notch. This was some of the best music, lighting, just the whole 9 yards that they had. It was very raw, it was very edgy, it was very contemporary. For both sermons that I attended, it's hard to really pinpoint everything that they were trying to do here, because it's almost like a play. Everything is very exaggerated. Like if you've ever heard about professional wrestling, WWE, like they don't call it wrestling anymore. It's called sports entertainment. And for this, it was church, but it was also entertainment. So like I feel like the proper term for this is church entertainment, because both times the senior pastor would introduce the lead pastor. And he for both services, he had this whole story to introduce the lead pastor that, his furnace went out this morning, his car broke down on the highway, but he just got here to do this sermon, so make sure to put your hands together for a round of applause. And it's like, all right, I just saw him give the 10 a.m. sermon, and he's getting the same intro for the 11:45 a.m. service. So, it's a little fake with how they do that. But one of the things that I've never seen in any other church service was, like, I've seen illustrative sermons before, but this tripled down on the illustrative sermons, because there were so many visuals that the pastor was using throughout. So the sermon was on Mark, and the whole theme with the circles and lines was that Jesus would put a line in the sand, follow me, and then he'd do a circle that I'll make you fishers of men. Or he'll say, follow me as the line, and then the circle would be so that Levi would come follow him. And what this pastor did is somehow he went into parenting. So he brought up this Instagram dad account where the dad will make actual, like, the best artistic visuals of what his kids draw him as animals, like giraffes, birds, parrots, what have you. And then later on, the pastor's talking about parenting. And for first-time parents, you think it's going to be perfect, like this movie type of scenario. But when it actually comes to bedtime for the kids, it turns into this WWE SmackDown event and all this craziness that goes on. Then he also set up a table with a picnic table, and he started talking about with their previous week with the Super Bowl of preaching. They're trying to do that to bring everyone to the table, like Jesus would bring people to the table for sinners. And then he starts talking about this Lamentations passage that God's mercy just keeps coming out and out and out. So he kept bringing out these pies, and the pies were supposed to represent our mercy for others, but eventually our mercy runs out. But with God's mercy, he comes with a new pie every single day, and his pie never runs out. So you had pies in the sermon. And then there also was something about Jeff Bezos and a story where he sent to his shareholders this letter about a friend who hired a headstand trainer. And the friend, it had to take 6 months to learn how to do a headstand. And you can't do a headstand in 2 weeks. So then somehow that incorporated into the sermon. And then at the very end, you're kind of wondering, why is all this luggage out there? So the pastor then talks about the luggage representing lies that we tell ourselves. And he put all the luggage on this conveyor belt. And then I'm guessing that with Jesus, he will take our lies away, and then the conveyor belt went on and the luggage fell to the side of this stage. The pastor never directly addressed last week's Super Bowl preaching with them kicking the Bible and everything that blew up online about that. but he did indirectly state something during this sermon that I'll have you listen to here.
We live in a culture in which we don't read the whole article, we read the headline, we skip to the middle, maybe it's something at the end, next story. That's how we go through life. We watch the video clip, it's 15 seconds, and we make massive conclusions about what happened in no context. This is the world we live in. Our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. You can Google this if you want to. There's all kinds of articles out there about it. I read a few of them over these last few weeks, researching, getting ready for this message, and found some really fascinating stuff. You know, on the National Institute of Health's website, there's an article in which they named a new condition. It's literally called TikTok use disorder. It's a real thing. You're laughing because you're like, I think I might have that. I know. There's another study I found in which they looked at how long our attention spans now, getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And they found for people who use TikTok, the average attention span is 9 seconds. 9. And before you're like, I don't use TikTok, I don't want China to have my information, I just like Instagram Reels and YouTube Reels, which are the same thing, by the way, just for the record, same thing. Even if you don't use TikTok, the average attention span is now 12 seconds long. And so what happens when we come to the words of Jesus, who draws circles and lines with a 12-second attention span? Well, I'll tell you what happens. We completely miss what he was saying.
With all these illustrative sermons, with the luggage, with the pies, with the Instagram drawings, with the movie clips, this was a very TikTok-like sermon. It was everything to kind of to catch your attention span for those, especially for those that were younger, so that you felt fully engaged. For me, myself, after seeing all this, I was very confused how this all came together, because you have these luggage lies, you have these mercy pies, you have parenting, you have, these lines and circles that Christ would use in his ministry. Like, to tie it all together, I didn't really grasp what the final take-home message was. To put a cap on this video, one of the concerns I have with megachurches or this seeker-sensitive church growth type of movement is, if you're going alone, you can't help but feel invisible. And I felt that way here. And was that intended? Absolutely not. When I spoke with the church staff, when I found my seat upstairs, also at the welcome desk, they gave me this. The staff members were absolutely fantastic. I have never even, just going to save this for the video just to see what they give you here. So they give you a little mug and more adventure, more coffee. They love their coffee. And then something about a winter adventure. So I'll have to look into that. But one thing that they played during this whole music worship, it was Reckless Love by Corey Asbury. So the refrain goes like this: "Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And again, with these megachurches, it's difficult because, with Christ, like, you're not in a flock of 100, like that talks about in that scripture that Jesus talks about. Like, you're 1 in 34,000 if you pay attention to what the church says that its weekly attendance is. And like, again, they didn't really promote anything from a Bible study perspective. It was all about the adventures that you could take. So just a little different fine-tuning than what other churches usually will try to plug you in. One observation I had is, for the last service, I sat in the very front. And, I was trying to get as close to the very front as I could just to get some footage. And one thing I noticed was a grandmother. And, I just don't envision many grandmothers wanting to be in the very front to listen to this loud bass and worship. But I noticed that she was with her granddaughter. And the granddaughter maybe was 13, 14 years old. I don't know. And I can't help but feel that with this grandmother, Like, she was there to take it for the team, so to speak. She wanted to bring her granddaughter to God. And this was her best way to do that. And, you know, in this, I can't help but feel, especially with the legalistic Christians that are condemning Crossroads Church, I can't help but feel like we all have different entry points in our faith journey. And not everyone is going to go straight towards Charles Spurgeon or John MacArthur or R.C. Sproul or these linguistic type of preachers who are absolute wordsmiths with how they interpret and decipher scripture. For some people, like, they listen to Taylor Swift. They watch WWE, SmackDown, or Raw. Like, it's a much different demographic, and that's what Crossroads Church is trying to reach out to. The big question, though, is does it lead to discipleship? And it could be planting a seed. It could be just giving this, again, that sugar-coated type of scripture where, hey, if you believe God, everything will be good and you can do whatever that you want. You can sin as much as you want. It's almost like spiritual insurance. I think for me, the big question then is, are people coming for a show? Is this too much of a consumer-based approach? Or are seeds being planted? Is there lasting change happening with church services like this? Whatever you think, feel free to leave comments below. I'd love to read those. Anyway, thanks for watching this video on Crossroads Church near Cincinnati, Ohio. I'll have a few more videos coming up in the future, so stay tuned for that. So make sure to like and subscribe. But until next time, hope you have a good one.